Yes, it is Elise Martin's birthday.
My birthday.
You are now legally drinking age, right?
That was like more than 12 years ago. What, how many years ago?
No.
If I'm
baby.
34.
It was like 13 years ago.
13 years ago.
Yeah.
I said more than 12. 13.
That's true. That is more than 12. It's a good number.
Boom, 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 boom,
Cha-ching.
boom, boom, boom.
Every single person in the world has one of these, and it is the source of most conflict in relationships and in companies.
Now is author Daren Martin.
Culture is the game. If you don't change the culture, you don't change the company.
Great cultures over the course of 10 years will yield a 746% increase in your net profit.
Holy moly!
One person in the top 1% is worth 12 in the bottom 1%. Called the culture architect for a reason.
We need to get into it.
Okay. And I should have said everybody in the world, all 7, whatever billion people it is, has a different one of these.
What is it?
How are you, Elise?
I'm great.
Okay, you ready to do another
fantastic.
company culture with Daren Martin and the great,
Elise Martin.
who has a very special day today. What is today?
It's my birthday.
It's your birthday.
Happy birthday to
You
me.
say it's your birthday. It's my birthday too.
Go shorty.
It's your birthday. Yeah, we were playing 50 Cent earlier. Too bad we couldn't, play that coming in. I think it would get yanked off of YouTube. So, no. So everybody has one of these, and they are all fundamentally different. And I'm, of course, talking about point of view.
Perspective?
We were just perspective and point of view, that people, have different backgrounds. They have different experiences. You can't say a word without people interpreting it through a different lens, right? Mm-hmm. So when someone says quality, that means different things to different people. When somebody says as soon as possible, that means different things to different people.
When somebody says vacation.
When somebody says vacation, I mean, think about it. You got, mountain people, you got beach people, et cetera. And all of those words come with power packed with all of these images.
Right.
And we wonder sometimes, particularly at companies, why we are not connecting when someone says, I need da-da-da-da, and you think, well, that was, I did do a good job on that. And their perspective is, no, not even close. And it's because of perspective, point of view. So we were just with the group, fantastic group, actually, up in Fort Collins. Man, how cool was Fort Collins?
Oh, Fort Collins was beautiful.
I didn't realize it was so cool. I've driven by it all the time. All those years I was going from Denver to Cheyenne, Wyoming, drove right through it.
I love
and I didn't
Collins.
realize it was this cool little hip downtown community. It's very
like
much a college town.
Yeah. Everything was so reasonable. Tucker had such a good time.
Yes, Tucker, who stayed home. He didn't want to come to the podcast today. So
He went
at
play
any
with
rate,
his toys. He hadn't seen his toys in 2 days.
yeah, I think he's sleeping actually. But at any rate, so we met with this group. It was 26 people or so globally, the U.S. and then from another country as well. And we were doing team building things, and it was amazing how much point of view really factored into, either points of conflict or just differing opinions. And it has to do with, just that different perspective from people who live in different countries or who see their business in a different way. And these were all people with very similar degrees, very similar, thought processes. But I'm trying to remember if I've ever talked about this on the show.
What?
I think I may have. I think I even asked Ziggy. But how many data points, how many points of input is the brain capable of processing in a second?
Oh, we haven't talked about this on the show. How
Okay,
many
so I'm
do you-
talking about like the way this table feels right now, the color,
The
temperature of the
temperature.
room, the light, everything that your brain can take in, right? All of those things, the way the seat feels sitting on it. How many data points or data points, either one, you say potato, I say potato, do you think that the brain can process at any given second? Dun, dun.
I think, isn't there like a mathematical name for it, and it's called like a flop because it's such a high number?
I don't know, but you're going to have to Google that now, find out what the flop is.
Okay.
I thought that was a poker term. It's actually 400,000 data points. Now think about that. In a second.
In a second. That's,
Okay.
That's all we can take in. Think about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's all.
It's a lot, but
That's a lot.
we must be missing so much.
Okay, but yeah, because what happens is we dumb that down evidently, and I don't know how scientists know this stuff that they know, but to about 2,000 data points. So you're feeling temperature, you're seeing color, you're hearing my voice, all of that kind of stuff. And what that means is that people narrow the field on what they choose to pay attention to.
Right.
And the reality is what you see is what you get. So if you're looking from a certain perspective, well, great question. Actually, when I teach some of what I was teaching this week, I teach this great communication course that I've been teaching for years now. And I will say, raise your hand if you have someone you thoroughly enjoy working with, but someone else says they can't stand working with that person. And 100% of the time, all the hands go up because we've all had that experience. I love working with, Susie, or I love working with Tom. And somebody else says, I can't stand working with that person. What is that? It's the same person. So why would one person like working with them and somebody doesn't like working with them?
It's that person's perspective of that person, right?
Okay, it just comes back to kind of point of view. Now, you like working with everybody, right?
Everybody. Well, mostly.
How do you like the team that you work on currently?
I love it.
Okay.
It decorated my desk.
By the way,
my
happy
birthday.
birthday.
Thank you.
It is your birthday.
Thank you.
And we're going to go celebrate and have
Yay.
a great night tonight. We're going to go do a little dancing and go have some Middle Eastern food and just tear it up. It's going to be a great night out. So, different perspectives, though, is where a lot of friction comes from in the workplace because you've got silos. So you've got the marketing department. They have their own point of view, right? Accounting has their own point of view. Manufacturing has their own point of view. And what happens is when you get these segments like that and they're broken down, then what becomes important from that perspective or from that point of view may not seem important at all to somebody else who is seeing it through a completely different lens. And it's like these right here. When you put these on, everything changes. You see the world differently. It's, the colors are dulled, so on and so forth. And people walk around with their own set of eyeglasses on that is really skewing reality, whatever reality may be. But it's skewing those things, and they think, oh, yeah, but that's accurate. How can you not see what I'm seeing?
What I've seen a lot is, because I like working with a lot of people, but I try not to get into, especially when, how am I going to put this? When you first meet someone, at first, sometimes people can rub you the wrong way, like the first meeting, first impressions. My grandma said they last forever, but they only last forever if you decide they do.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely.
So I found some people rubbed me the wrong way for like the first year I worked in a place, but I kept working on it, and then finally I realized I got where they were coming from, and then they just turned into a much nicer person to me, from my perspective.
Okay, so have you ever had somebody that you had some conflict or tension with, and then you found out something about them?
Yes.
About maybe where they came from, some of the hardship they've been through.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, boom, your opinion just changes dramatically.
A lot
right?
of the times what you hear is somebody who spends so much time talking about that other person saying, oh my God, they're awful, they're so mean to me, blah, blah, blah. And then one day they hear, because nobody's going to tell them, nobody's supposed to be sharing what's really going on with them. Somebody tells them that they were sick, or they lost a child or a dog, or, and that person who's been running around the office saying how awful they are suddenly feels like crap.
Yeah, you realize that, oops,
I didn't
shouldn't have
know.
gone down that road.
Right?
So Henry Ford, great American hero. There's been some, a lot of people, but some bad press about Ford. Actually, if you Google and dig into some of the things that have been said about him, you'll find out that there's some other parts of that story, and that a lot of that was actually resolved historically. But at any rate, I don't know why I felt like I needed to do a disclaimer for Henry Ford.
Yeah, we're not related.
At any rate, Henry Ford said this. Henry Ford said, if there is any one secret to success. Now, I don't know about you, but when somebody who's been pretty successful, very successful, at one point he was one of the wealthiest Americans, And obviously gave us the automobile.
Right.
But if someone that is that crazy successful says, if there's any one secret to success, then I want to. No, it's not
Cookies?
cupcake. No. Do you want a cake for your birthday, by the way?
No, I don't eat cake.
Okay. So he said, if there's any one secret to success, it is this.
What?
So in my mind, when somebody like that is about to dump this big, epiphany on you, then you should sit up and take notice. And his, what he said was, if there's any one secret to success, it lies in the ability to see the other person's point of view as well as you can see your own.
Wow.
And I can't tell you, I was doing this before that quote, but how much that idea has really shaped my thinking and my world.
Wow.
Because until you can get in the other person's shoes and kind of see the world through their lens, right?
You can't really get into their shoes, but you can get as close as possible. And nobody can ever walk in your shoes. I could never be you, but I could imagine and try and get to a stage where I understand better.
Absolutely. So who is the expert on another person's point of view? Who is the absolute expert on somebody else's point of view? Completely stumped you.
The person with the point of view.
Yes! Thank you, Ziggy! Ziggy came in to bail you out on that one, Elise.
Because he's the best.
Yes, you're focused on birthday right now. Your mind's sort of not operating on all cylinders, as smart as you are. So, but no, the person who has the perspective. So if you really want to know somebody else's perspective, you can surmise some of that. And I do think it's a good exercise to say, hey, what would it feel like to be the head of this company when people are sniping at you all the time, and when people are, being very critical, and it's, as I say, it's lonely at the top. I mean, some of that stuff, if you just try a little bit, you can come up with. But in most cases, the best way to find out what somebody else's point of view is, and particularly when you're having some point of conflict, is to say, hey, we clearly have different opinions about this. So I'm kind of curious, what are you seeing? How much workplace conflict could be solved if people would just take that step?
Right.
Tell me how this is impacting you, right? So you get this brand new, great piece of software. It's going to change the world. It's going to make the company more money. It's going to be fantastic. And people are resisting it. They're saying, I don't want it. I'm not using it. I'm not doing it. And when you get down into their world and find out it's harder, it's more difficult, maybe it takes longer for them to do certain things that they used to be able to do in a much quicker fashion. If you haven't done the legwork to figure out, how is this going to impact them, and you just slam this thing in there, then all of a sudden you find out people are resistant to it. How you doing over there, Elise?
Okay.
So when we talk about point of view, why don't we show the little video that you did? I love this. This is from a talk I did a while back for Office, not a while back, a couple of years ago, for Office Dynamics in Las Vegas. Here you go.
Yep.
So you can see the crowd. Okay, so we have a problem. I don't know if y'all heard the problem. Did their descriptions match? Okay, so who's right? This is America. They can't both be right. Who's right? Ashley or Susan? Who's right? Silly question, okay? How are they both right? Because they are looking from what? Different perspectives. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. I guarantee you 98%, that's a made-up number, of your office conflict, but based on a lot of data, trust me, of your office conflict or your relationship conflict or anything else goes like this. There are wrinkly curtains. No, they're not. There are shadows and people in the room and black holes in the ceiling. No, they're not. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, there are. You're dead wrong. And it's back and forth when all we have to do is say, let me see what you're seeing. Let me try to understand that. Owners look for opportunities to understand the other person's position as well as they can see your own. In fact, I want to give you a little homework assignment. Pick 10 people you interact with on a regular basis. And I want you to think about and do a little profile on them. What must it be like to be them? What must it be like to not get the thing they needed? I don't mean from you, but just in general from the company. Or what's it like being out there in sales or whatever the arena of the company, and really try to understand that position, because it's going to make you more powerful and it's going to put you in a better opportunity to communicate with those people.
Awesome. Great job. That's a very nicely done
Thank
video.
you.
By the way, I get people all the time ask me, who does your videos? I'm like, she sits right here. It's Elise doing my videos, our videos. So, I think I quoted in there, I normally do so first of all, just a setup for people. When I do that on stage, I'll have two people up and I'll have them face each other and then look past the other person and describe what they see. And of course, one person's facing the audience. So they say, well, I see a room full of people. I see, red lights, whatever they say. And then the other person says, well, I see, a big screen or curtains or whatnot. And then I get into the whole who's right. And the point, and everybody's like, well, they're both right. And I make my funny little joke about they can't both be right. It's America, which is funny, but not so funny.
Why do we say it like that?
I don't know. America. It's just part of the stick. America. I saw a hat actually this week with somebody that just said America on it. I thought that was funny. So at any rate, the point being that of course they're both right. They're seeing the what they're looking through is different perspectives, right? There's a different point of view. Is the perspective of the CEO of a company different from the perspective of someone who's only worked at the company a couple of weeks?
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah. So in fact, sometimes I always recommend that when you get new people that come to work for the company, have them make observations, make some notes on that. And after they've been there about 3 weeks, sit down with them and say, hey, what did you notice when you first came in? Because what happens a lot of times is, you know how this goes, that if you got a big pile of something in your place and eventually, just stacked up over there, you're going to deal with it someday. And then you just become blind to it, right? You don't recognize it. And someone else walks in and goes, oh my goodness, why do you have that big pile of stuff sitting there? It's the first thing I saw. You don't see it because your perspective is, manipulated around it. So I recommend when people go to work for companies that they sit down with them at some point and say, okay, what did you observe? How are we doing as a company? How friendly are we? What seems weird to you? What was part of the process that seemed just kind of out of whack? Because that's a new, fresh set of eyes, right?
Yep, I love that, and I think you should do it with old employees as well. Because
love it.
Because remember that
old. You mean like old in age, or old like they've been there a while?
Old like the older they've been there 2 years, 1 year,
sure.
3 years, or every year, right? Try and make sure you know what the perspectives are, because the people who have been there 2 years, 3 years, when the new person comes in, they're going to feed them that data, right? So how your culture, how well your culture does depends on not just the perspective of new people, but the perspective of the people that are already there, right?
That cross section, right? So I can't tell you how many times this has happened. I go into a company and I'm working with them, and so I'm working on culture issues, and so I'll go out and interview a big cross section because I want lots of different points of view, right? So I'll go out there and I'll interview them. And I'll say, hey, guy that runs this piece of machinery, hey, gal that, works in this particular part of the company, what's it like being you? And tell me about the company and how would you describe it? And then I get all of these, positions and perspectives of people, and I kind of bundle that up in a big ball and then say, okay, here's kind of the 360 of the organization based on having talked to a lot of people. And what I find is that, so let's say I have 70 conversations with different people, and they all say the same thing. Oh, we have a problem with this. Our culture's broken, or we don't live this value that we say we live. We don't really live it. And then I go back to the executives, and there's been way too many times where I say, hey, this is a pretty widely held point of view out there. This is the perspective out there. They'll go, oh, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true about our company. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, okay, chances are, but what's happening there? Because they are insulated many times. Leaders are insulated. And if they're not getting that feedback, because maybe sometimes people are hesitant, maybe they haven't asked, So
Most of the time, I feel like they just haven't asked.
They just haven't asked, right? Because it's actually sometimes kind of baffling to me how free and open people are when I just go in and say, "Hey, my name's so and so, and tell me about the company." Oh, well, I'll tell you about the company,
I think
right?
they haven't asked, and they haven't fostered a culture where people feel like they can talk about anything.
Of openness.
Openness, right?
Yeah, we were talking to some folks recently, and they were saying that tension is good in a company because it kind of keeps things going. I'm like, no. I think tension. We got to do a whole show on fear at some point,
Fear
and
and
fear
what,
within
friction?
the fear and friction within the company. But yeah, so what are the perspectives and the points of view? What are the points of view of your customers? People say, "Oh yeah, well, our customers, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't
But they're
understand our
important.
business." Of course, they're important.
Without the customers, where would you be?
And you're probably not getting their point of view, their perspective just off one survey, right?
No.
That has 2 questions: how are we doing, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think one of the qualities of life that makes you powerful as a person, makes you powerful as a leader, is being able to put yourself in other people's shoes. I don't know where that whole saying came from, but being able to put yourself in other people's shoes so that then you can have a broader view of the world. Because instead of having, we're doing the show right now. We've got 3, 4 cameras. And why do we have 4 cameras? Why don't we just have 1 camera? Because this is a professional broadcast, right, Ziggy? And because it's different. So, Ziggy will run the thing over there and he'll go back and forth from us and then me and then you. And he's, kind of going through, look at that, rifling through those. And they're just different perspectives. The show looks different when you're seeing through which camera. So if you picture yourself, you're out there walking around with the camera in the company and you're just seeing through that lens. Somebody else is carrying a very different camera. And the more you know about what those other perspectives are, the stronger you're going to be as a leader.
Honestly, the stronger you're going to be in all settings in life. What was it? The Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, that great scene.
Oh, I love
where
that.
they climbed up on the desk so they could see the world from a different perspective.
I forgot about that.
And
I love that.
And he told them that they need to remember to always, look from different perspectives. It changing your point of view of something could change everything, right?
So that's that little thing called the reticular activation system as well, where your brain sees what it's looking for. I've always said, if you think the world is a bad, horrible place and people are out to screw you over at every turn, what kind of people are you going to come across?
Mean, scary people.
Mean, scary people, right? If you decide, hey, the world's a beautiful, vibrant place and people will help you at any turn, then all of a sudden, that's the kind of people that you're going to encounter. And of course, it goes back to the book that came out and was such a runaway sensation. And it was, it was really old ideas that were kind of repackaged, but nonetheless, a bit of a reminder. It was the little book called The Secret. I don't know if I've ever read this.
Oh, I read it. And the second part. I read the second part too.
Okay, I think I saw the movie or something.
Didn't you read The Secret? I thought you read it.
Maybe I did.
Do you remember
It's a short little thing.
Yeah, it's a.
But
yeah.
I get the ideas, and I've read a lot of
It's an
a lot of
interesting
other
read.
authors that go into the same thing. But I really do think there's a lot of truth to the fact that we do create our own reality.
We do.
That, I was talking to a guy at lunch today, and he was just describing someone. It was the whole glass half full, half empty. I jokingly said about a family member one time that for them, not only, I said this to their face, so I said, but not only is the glass half empty, but it's poisoned. They didn't think that was very funny. They did kind of laugh, but it was in a
Yeah, I remember that
jokey
chuckle. I remember it was like.
So perspective. What's your perspective? What's your point of view? If you are finding that, people are out to get you at the company, et cetera, maybe you need to put some different eyeglasses on. And if you're not, as a leader, getting the kind of results that you want from your folks and from your team, you need to back up and say, what's their life like? What's their world like? So when you say things like, well, I don't get it, we pay them really well. Well, do you, according to their perspective?
Ooh,
Is it just pay? What else is there? What are the things that make it difficult for them to come to work every day?
And this is something a lot of companies, a lot of people don't do because people don't like it. People like having their workspace. But there is a company where everyone in the company rotates. I can't remember what company it is. Where everyone rotates. So you rotate, you spend like 10 days on this project, then you go help somebody else with the other project. You move from section to section to section to section. So they hire people who can float between departments and so on. So you come in every day, you get your laptop, and you just go to where your team is working. You work in different teams. So you see all points of contact, all the perspectives. Everybody's working together. The CEO is working on your team. Tomorrow he's going to be in marketing, the next day, and he's working with them. He's not leading them, right? At this point, he's one of that little group. I can't remember what
I think that's
called.
Brilliant, and I recommend, I think it's in a company of owners, but I recommend doing some cross-pollination, right? So if you're in the treasury group and you're dealing with, accounting or the CFO or whatever on a regular basis, just like you would take your puppy to work day or take your child to work day, go sit in that office with those people that you're either responsible for or you're connected with in some way, or that they depend on you for something, and kind of see what their world's like, so that you can see, oh, well, when I send them this thing last minute,
This is how long it takes.
this is how long it takes to get it going.
This is what causes them to go home late.
Yeah,
And
no
this
wonder
is why
they're
they're grumpy
irritated.
the next day. You see what I mean?
It's not their part of the process is not a 2-minute process like I thought it was. It actually is a 45-minute, pretty involved. And if I would send it to them in this format, it would actually take a significantly less amount of time to get that thing
And then
accomplished.
they would be happier in the morning.
Yeah, and you can accomplish the same thing by going to lunch with them. In fact, what happens at work, typically we go to lunch with who? Who are the people we go to
They're
lunch with?
teammates.
The teammates, right? The people we work with every day.
People-
We're not going to get a whole bunch of, I think you can get
Some companies do.
some learning
I
from
worked in
that.
a company where we did a once a week, once a month. I felt like it wasn't exactly measured in time, but very closely. I would say every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, we did the whole group goes to lunch. Everybody goes to lunch together.
They just all
The
go-
whole company, we would go to lunch together. But it was a small company, so it was easy to do. There were only 11 of us, right? So it was easy. I remember at D Magazine, we implemented the buddy system for new hires, where the new hire gets to go to lunch their first day and their second day and their third day with people from departments that they were. So if you were hired in marketing, you go to lunch with someone in accounting. And if you were hired in marketing, your next day you'll go to lunch with someone from sales. You know
I
what
love
mean?
it. So you get that broad exposure to the company.
It's not just that. You've started this little fostering of a friendship outside of their department from the first day.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that they might get a spark with that person, and then you're breaking down silos because you've got friendships through the silos. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple of pieces of homework assignment. One is write down the names or titles, positions, whatever, of some people you work with. Like, I work a lot with accounting, or I work a lot with IT, or whatever the case may be. And write down those particular groups, or maybe even those individuals, and kind of try to write a 1 to 2 paragraph description of what their life must be like from that job perspective. Oh, yeah, IT, people are constantly, grabbing them in the hallway. They didn't fill out the ticket. And, we think that's a way for IT to just avoid, doing work, but it's really in place because, they're constantly being, hey, can you come fix my email? Well, that may not be the top priority in the company right now, or it might be that somebody else besides the VP of IT could actually make that happen, right? But so that's one area. So you write down people that you work with on a regular basis and try to give a little bit of description, and then go check it out with them and say, hey, here's kind of what I thought it might be like to be you, but what am I missing? And they may go, well, that has nothing to do with anything, in my real world. Let me tell you how I spend most of my time. So think about, how they spend most of their time, what keeps them awake at night, what do they really enjoy about their job, and start to exercise those muscles of having different points of view, different perspectives.
I love it. I'm going to go do it.
Are you going to go do it? Are you going to write down what it's like to be me? Married to the most wonderful, beautiful person on the
You
planet.
must be so happy.
I am so happy.
I'm so happy too.
Okay, you ready to Martinize something?
Ready? Let's Martinize.
This is a petty one. This is a small one, but I hate being put on hold, and I hate hearing the loop over and over and over again of the same thing. Do something interesting as a company. Why not have comedy routines, okay, on there? Although, you know, I know the problem that companies have with this is no matter what they pick, somebody's going to complain about it. But either just
Truly.
give me some nice, soothing music. But the ones that irritate me the most is when every 10 seconds it's coming on and it's doing a pitch. Did you know, by the way, that we also offer blah, 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 blah? And I'm just like, stop. I'm probably not in a good mood anyway if I'm having a call and we're having a customer service issue. So make sure that whatever you're subjecting people to on the phone when they're on hold builds your brand, is good for the business, and it's not just wildly irritating. Better yet, just don't put them on hold in the first place. If you can, you know, at all avoid
Expedite,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Get them on the phone with someone.
Expedite it, but call in and listen to your own on-hold message and see how that feels to you or how that sounds to you. You talk about a point of view. Get some other people's perspective about how they're responding and hearing that. Hey, if you want to go for bonus points, hook them up to some machinery where you can check their heartbeat and all of that, blood pressure. And if you find that your on-hold message is causing a coronary, then you may want to change it. How do you like that?
I like it. No, I want Ziggy. Tell the short version of your story when your internet went down
Oh boy!
and you had to call in.
Here at the studio, our internet went down, and so I called into our IT company to ask for help. They put me on hold, and about every 30 seconds, a message came on saying, if you're having trouble, you can also email us for help. No, I physically cannot do that because your product is not working right now.
They were just rubbing salt in the wound.
Oh, I was
Hilarious.
furious.
Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, so be watching this week for points of view. If you find yourself getting irritated, if you find yourself having conflict with somebody at work, consider that there's a very different perspective. You might go try to figure out what that is by asking the person, exercising that brain a little bit, and expand the horizon. I think you'll be
Expand your heart.
surprised. Yeah.
Expand your heart.
Expand your heart. And again, I would be negligent if I didn't say happy birthday, Elise. Today is your birthday, and we'll be back next week with Company Culture with Daren Martin.